Our third presenter this evening, Tom Deardorff, introducing 2021 inductee Roger Schmiedeskamp. Tom is a 1967 graduate of Adel, a teammate, classmate, and longtime friend. Roger becomes a second-generation Hall of Fame member as his father, Coach Ray, was inducted in 2012. Welcome, Hall of Famer Roger Schmiedeskamp.
Roger and I grew up together here at Adel High School. We graduated together and competed together in sports. Then, unbeknownst to each other, we accidentally became neighbors 5 years ago when he and Diane moved in just a few blocks away from us. So it's my honor tonight to present this for Roger, but first thing I want to do is acknowledge Doyce Blomquist, class of '66, who passed away unexpectedly at Christmas 2019. Doyce is the person who compiled all the information on Roger's accomplishments, his career, and submitted the nomination papers for the ADM Athletic Hall of Fame. So Doyce and Roger played together baseball, basketball in junior high, high school, and Doyce is probably here with us tonight with that unique grin that he always had. Roger moved here in 5th grade. His dad, Ray Schmiedeskamp, was hired as the industrial arts and mechanical drawing teacher and assistant football coach. Roger's dad passed away very unexpectedly in his senior year, and Roger's peers came up along beside him and supported him through this life event and found strength to continue to focus on goals and lead by example and compete in sports and finish school. The 1967 Tiger's Tale yearbook was dedicated to Raymond Schmiedeskamp. During high school and in the sports, Roger earned 12 varsity letters, 4 in track, 4 in baseball, 2 in basketball, and 2 in football. Roger excelled in the pole vault, where he set the school record, and he was the conference champion. He qualified in the state pole vault. Baseball, he was an outfielder and a pitcher when he was selected first team all-conference, as an outfielder in '66 and as a pitcher in '67. He was also an all-state honorable mention his senior year. Basketball, Roger was an outstanding guard. His senior year, he averaged 19 points and he led in team assists and steals. The team had a 15-4 record, including a win over Urbandale. Roger was selected for the first team all-conference, the all-county team, all-state honorable mention. And in football, his senior year in 1966, he was the team captain. He intercepted six interceptions, averaged 4 yards in punting, and was selected as an all-conference defensive back. And their team had an 8-1 record and won the conference championship that year. At graduation, Roger received the 1967 Male Athletic Award. He received both the 1966-1967 Leroy Farrell Memorial Athletic Awards. And then in his secondary education, he got a bachelor's degree from Wayne State College, a master's degree, University of Missouri, and an education specialist diploma from the University of Missouri. Roger's wife, Diane, they met in the summer of '66 when Diane came to Adel to visit her uncle, Jerry Eckerman, which many of you may remember, the Eckerman Jewelry Store on the west side of the town square. And but they didn't really start dating until '71, and that's when they were married in December of '72. They have 2 daughters, Reagan, who is here tonight, and Michaela, 2 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. And they will celebrate 49 years of marriage this coming December. Roger primarily taught math and science over a 20-year period. And of course, Roger's love of sports and desire to build character, self-esteem, and confidence in students led him into coaching, where he coached boys and girls track, cross country, basketball, baseball, softball, football, and golf. He still plays a lot of golf and pickleball year-round. His teaching career began in Ottumwa Junior High School, then moved to Interstate 35 High School in Adel, and then New Bloomfield, Missouri High School, and Lynn, Missouri High School. After teaching, Roger moved into administration, where he spent 18 years as principal and superintendent. He was principal in Wheatland, Missouri, principal in West Monona, K through 12 school in Ottawa, and then superintendent in Manning K through 12 school, where he retired in 2011. Roger is recognized in the Who's Who among American teachers, which is the best teachers in America selected by the best students. During his 20 years as teacher and coach, one of the students was selected in the top 10 students in Iowa during the 80s. In Lynn, Missouri, his math team won the conference championship every year that he was there at the school. Roger coached girls junior high basketball that was undefeated. He coached the Adel cross-country team that won for the first time in school history. It won a meet, I'm sorry. Roger was unselfishly given of himself and his time to mentoring, coaching, and teaching our youth the entire time of his life. Roger firmly believes he would not have had a career in education had it not been for athletics. He went off to college expecting to do something in business, but in his sophomore year, he realized he really wanted to coach. At that time, coaches were teachers, so he changed his major to education. In the beginning, his priority was coaching. However, it didn't take long for him to change his priority to teaching. As a teacher, Roger was assigned several students, teachers, and through this experience, he felt he could contribute more to education by being a mentor to young teachers and became a school administrator. As ADM athlete, Roger was very competitive and never believed they should ever lose a game. He practiced hard and played hard. His leadership, communication, decision-making, and teamwork skills were all honed through athletics and was a major factor to his success in education. An additional note, Roger's family has tagged him as the ultimate competitor. When growing up, the two girls knew they could expect no mercy when playing childhood games from their dad, like Candyland and Crazy Eights. He was all in to win. And Diane will tell you how excited she gets whenever she gets as much as 1 point ahead of him in pickleball. And if she ever beats Roger, she celebrates like an Olympic gold medal winner. So now, congratulations, Roger.
Thank you, Tom. You see he has a nice, neat speech all typed out, and I got a little chicken scratch in here. I probably should have had him give my speech, too. I want to thank, first of all, Tom for taking over for Doyce for doing this. I want to thank the Alumni Association for this award, but also commend them for all of the things they do for the school and community. This particular night and activity is one of my favorite times of the year because it gives me the opportunity to visit with so many friends and classmates and hear some stories. I tell stories and I find out that some of them that I tell are actually true. So that's always a good thing. I want to thank family for showing up tonight. My youngest daughter was planning on being here, but travel problems caused a delay and she couldn't make it from the East Coast. parents obviously are not here, but they're a big part of what I am. My dad was a great athlete. Been inducted into this Hall of Fame. He was a good coach, and I got a lot of athletic ability from him. But the competitive edge, for any people that have been around and played bridge around here, know my mom was a little bit of a competitor, and she took the quarters away from the other ladies quite often. Also want to thank the classmates and friends and classes. There's several from the class of 66 that are here. They're good friends, but also my class of 67. Thank you for showing up and sharing this evening with me. I appreciate it. Doyce cannot be here. He's the one that nominated me several years ago. I'm sure Margie had a lot to do with helping him get the papers in order. But and I miss not having him here tonight. I'm going to take a little trip down memory lane. I played 4 sports, have a lot of things. I started out with several pages of things, and I thought, well, I can't talk about all that stuff. But I picked out a couple things that were memorable for me. Starting with baseball, if you looked at my board, I had one picture, and it was when I was an 8th grader with kind of a yellowish faded uniform, because the varsity got the good uniforms, and I got this wool uniform. But anyway, anytime when you played a conference, your conference games were important. So the non-conference games, you know, they could sometimes throw some people out there. And we happened to play Ames when I was an 8th grader. And after a couple innings, Coach Githens calls me up and says, warm up. I'm thinking, yeah, they're playing Ames, and they're pretty good. They're a big school. And he threw me out to the Wolves. And we got through it. I'm sure I didn't hit him or anything, but didn't get beat up too bad, got to bat. And the thing about baseball at that time, as an 8th grader, Alan O'Neill and we were young for our class. We got to play Little League as 7th graders. So as 8th graders, we're going into high school. And so all of a sudden, from being a Little Leaguer to a high school player, it was a big step. And I got to bat, and I hit a ball. If it would have been in Little League, man, I would have been way out of that park. And the left fielder, he made a routine catch. And at least I didn't strike out, so that was good. I remember Coach Githens also then had some confidence in me every once in a while up at Panora. Hadn't played a lot. I get to play every once in a while, run bases or fill in the late innings. And I was coming in to pinch hit for somebody, and he comes up to me and he says, well, think you can get the bat on the ball if you bunt? We had a runner on third base. And I said, well, what am I going to say? No. So I said, sure. So I thought, well, I can't pop this up. We're going to have a squeeze bunt. I cannot pop this up. And I got just barely the bottom of that bat on the ball, and it did go fair, and we scored the run. And after that, Coach Githens let me play a little bit more. But baseball was not a big sport for Adel at that time. A lot of people didn't play there all their years, but we had several in our class that did. Alan did. Jerry Pierce played. Henry Kelly. I'm going to miss somebody. And then earlier in the year, Kurt he was always on the team that I was on. But good teammates. We had a good season. We were 12-6 for the year, which wasn't great, but it was a good season. And at that time, we always got to play big schools in tournaments. So Valley of West Des Moines was the team that came out, and they just kind of ended my high school career. Track was the first sport that I lettered in. Now, it was a little bit different. We had a lot of fast people like Tom, Steve Edwards, John Owens, a lot of people could run, and I guess I wasn't quite that fast. Andy Farrell would beat me every once in a while in a race, but he only weighed 250. But anyway, I thought, well, if I'm going to contribute to track, I'm going to have to do something different. So I thought it would be pole vault. Well, it was so long ago that I was starting that in junior high we used a metal pole. And we didn't have these nice foam pits that you got to jump into. But we did have a sawmill in town. And so they'd go out and get trucks loads of sawdust and pile them up about this high. And that's what we high jumped and pole vaulted into. Later on, they would get some inner tubes and put a canvas over them. But at first, that's what we did. And then as a freshman, Kurt and I were the second pole vaulters or third pole vaulters. Lance Clark was a senior, and they had a pole for him. Well, he weighed about 165 pounds, I suppose, and Kurt and I put together might have weighed 200, I don't know. But we would compete against each other, and we'd stay there, everybody else would be gone, and Kurt and I'd be out there messing around. And early in the year, we were competing to see who got the second place on the team at the next meet. And whoever won the jump off got to go. Well, I was fortunate, and that day, one day I beat him. But we weren't done practicing, so Kurt, he's going to go try to make this height that he had missed. And he didn't quite get up there, and he rides the pole down and snaps the pole. Our only pole that we had. But fortunately, we got to get a new pole real quick, and Kurt and I continued for the next, his 3 years and my 2 years, and we had a good time vaulting. Basketball, Tom mentioned we beat Urbandale. Urbandale was the suburban champions that year. We were behind 20 points with 6 minutes to go in the game. And Gary Alexander made a shot at the buzzer to beat Urbandale, and that was my favorite game of all time. We also beat Ballard Huxley last year, and they were the Heart of Iowa champion. And our conference was pretty tough. We were third place in our conference. And Redfield won the conference, but we got even with them. We beat them in the tournament. We ended up with 15-4, and that was one of the better records they had had until, 70, 71, where they had the fantastic seasons. Football was king at that time. The school, the town, they all followed. So a lot of times we would have more fans at a away game than the home team did. In the middle of the season, we went up to Woodward Granger. We got beat by a touchdown. Andy Farrell broke a collarbone that day, didn't get to play the part of the game. Steve Edwards got dinged up a little bit. He didn't get to play. And it was the most disappointing game of all the sports that we played. It was a tough loss. Dallas Center had beaten Woodward Granger, and so when we were going to play them 2 or 3 weeks later, and I don't know what it was. It was 40-something to nothing or 6 that it was no contest. We ended up 8-1 and tied for the conference championship. So those are just a little things that I enjoyed. Now, at that time, there was a big difference in what sports are then and what they are today. One, the equipment, the facilities. The facilities around here, the track, the stadium, all of those things are just fabulous. We ran around a dirt road around Macy Field. Our senior year, they actually put in a curb, but they didn't put in the cinders or the K-light or anything until after we were gone. Just the landing pit was different. We didn't have great facilities down there. We didn't have camps like they do. In basketball, they have camps all the summer you can go to in the AAU. Well, our camp was Doyce's sister and brother-in-law lived in downtown Des Moines, and we would go to the new Y, that one they just tore down because it was so old a little bit ago. We went down to that new Y in Des Moines and took a bunch of people with us, and we were down there and played with the Des Moines kids, and that was our camps. We also didn't have AAU teams, But Jim Kornstrom set up a team that we had some guys from Earlham, we had some guys from Winterset, some guys from Adel, DeSoto, and we went down to Des Moines in the southeast bottom and played a tournament. That was our AAU team. Didn't have any coaches or anything doing that for us. We had to do those things on our own. We didn't have weight training like they do now, but we had a lot of farmers, so they did pretty good weight training. Tom Codron and I, however, we just worked at swimming pools, so that was our weight training. We do a little swimming. It's hard to imagine what some of the guys on our football team would have looked like if we would have had a true weight training at that time. Also, I remember from football, at that time you were told don't ever drink water when you're practicing or playing a game because you'll get a cramp. So we would practice all day and be all dehydrated, and then we'd go in and take a drink of water because we had to wash our salt tablets down. Times are just a little bit different. All in all, high school was a great time for me because you got to play sports all year round. Football would be over the next Monday, you were at basketball. You get beat in the basketball tournament, and the next day you'd be out for track. Before track was over, you were throwing the baseball, get your arm in shape, and you'd play until into July. And you had a little bit of time off between end of July, 1st of August, before football started again. Usually then we were down playing tag football or something like that. One thing I didn't mention earlier is I was very fortunate to have moved to Adel in 1959. We were never in a town this big. It had a swimming pool and all that stuff. And the thing that got me was when we moved into the town, we lived on Chance Court, and that was the new suburb of Adel at that time. And not all of the lots were filled. And as you came into the street, there was a sign. It said, "Beware of children." I thought, oh, this is going to be all right. They're afraid of the kids. And we had a lot of games on that Chance Court. Lonigans were there, Bechtels were there. We had a lot of good times. At school, in high school, we got to go to school 7 hours. We got to go play sports for a couple hours. And if you had to change one thing, that was kind of out of balance, I thought. Should have had a few more hours of sports and a whole lot less of that classroom. So thank you for this honor. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate this award.